The second semifinal is here. You've got in the top left of side Delta Creator, Lone Protoss, standing up against the 7-time GSL champion, Maru. Or is it 8? Is it 8 now? 8L? Jeez. I don't remember. Too many to count, and some of the first ones are more impressive than the latter ones. I'm just going to say it. But nonetheless, he dominates GSL. And has the records to prove it. And also generally dominates any of the Protoss that he faces. So, yeah, I'm pretty worried for Creator. It's already kind of surprising that Creator was the one that made it through as opposed to Hero. And part of the reason that Creator made it through is because he did defeat Hero, which kind of set him on a more difficult path to victory than he would have liked. And obviously he didn't actually to be victorious. It was Creator who advanced on, defeating Hero and Dark in the process, and did not get tested on his Terran in the round of 8. But we've seen Creator's PvT before, and it is pretty good. There are times where Creator seems to be more of the experimental one and able to deliver more varied results. So I would say overall, this guy is not supposed to beat Maru. Being totally honest. But I feel like Creator, especially given a little bit of time to prepare, would have a good shot, actually. Like a surprisingly good shot, perhaps. But still, overall, Maru is very dependable in this matchup. Well, there's a lot of things that can happen in the matchup. Early game, mid game, late game. It's one of my favorites because it just seems like there's a lot of options. The Protoss can be aggressive. The Terran can be aggressive. The Protoss can be defensive. The Terran can be defensive. The Protoss can do some kind of crazy, like, 3-based Stargate thing, apparently, now. Or in they can also do, you know, the Colossus push out, and they can... Whatever. It's pretty cool. It seems like it has a lot of options. And so you would think that means that the Protoss has a chance to maybe even surprise the Terran. But that's actually not kind of what happens. I mean, what's neat about the matchup is that we see some little variations of like 2 Adepts harassing versus 1 versus 3 versus Stargate Oracle harassment. Or instead it's a 4-gate, or maybe it's actually a 3-gate, or maybe it's actually a 2-gate. Whatever it is. But these things, except for the 4-gate, I suppose, which is pretty all-in, they're more like harassment. They are things that can give you a little bit of an edge in games, and in really, truly terrible circumstances for the Terrans, sometimes they do win a game. Sometimes the 3 Adepts and an Oracle win against a great Terran like Beyond or something like that. But overall, it's not usually what ends the game. So I'm sure Creator has a couple of things up his sleeve that he's thinking more so will actually end the game. So a 4-gate blink, perhaps a crazy charge all in brought out as well. That would be interesting. And Maru might be the one who's tasked a little more on the defensive to play a little bit of a straight-up safer game, because he is the favorite to win. And if you're the favorite, generally playing middle-of-the-road standard games can be a safe way for you to ensure victory. A couple of Hellions pop out, scare away the first Adept. Second Adept is healthy and available. Also a Stalker is there. We do have so far 3 gateways. So Creator, he sees that it is a reaction factory. I might be kind of worried about what that actually means. This could be a proxy starport, either for, well, a medevac for 4 Hellions, which he's about to see. Oh, good hide. Maru actually hid that Cyclone, 1, so the Adept wouldn't see it, and then 2, if it did actually shade, because it was like, oh, nothing's here. Cyclone would have killed it. Nicely done. So it could have been for the Hellion drop, right? Or it could even just be for a Liberator with Cyclone pressure at the front alongside any amount of Marines that you build up. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're 2 gateway, no shield battering, anyways, then that actually is a lot. And that could be very scary. It isn't that, and Creator will have his 3 gateways mostly unused, as he does add on the 3rd Nexus. He still prioritized the economy overall, but he had that safety to fall back on should he need it. But Maru doesn't do anything particularly aggressive, actually very non-aggressive. That Hellion was a scout that saw that it was 3 gateways. He did not see a 4th. It's a little sketch, because, I mean, that could have been, like, over there or something, but... There we go. There's the check on the 3rd Nexus with the other Hellion. So, that bunker, might as well finish it, right? But you are not being 4-gated. The 3-gate pressure could still happen because there could be a Warp Prism. But if there was, it only like just popped out recently, so not that big of a deal. And a lot of Protoss players, aside from Max Packs, won't go for a Warp Prism with the 3-gate. Max Packs is pretty intense on that every time, but not the other guys. So the Hellion just got kind of even more confirmation about what this is. Saw the number of Stalkers, saw no Warp Prism waiting, saw no Robotics Bay. Of course, it's only limited information, more pieces to the puzzle. Is I think especially for Creator, you really want to know if he's going to go into some type of fast storm. I feel like Creator has had some really almost cool results with fast storm. It seems like he's going to win an upset, and then he just barely doesn't do it. So I'd still be scared of that. And it really does seem like Maru is playing this very safe game, either because he is legitimately scared of Creator's potential, and I'll check their record in a second. Maybe this is actually a closer matchup than I remember. Or because he is falling back on the whole, I'm the favorite, I usually win this, and so I don't need to do anything crazy. Like, I could even go ahead and hurt my economy the slightest bit to ensure victory. So, you know, the 100 mineral bunker, gasp, but, you know, it's crazy if you got that against a Protoss who is pure macroing. Waste of 100 minerals. It's an exaggeration, but still. Maybe you skip that step if you think that you're, you know, going toe-to-toe. You're very equal on the skill level. Although I think that's a very... No matter who you're up against, I think that's kind of a scary thing to do. No bunker against someone who could be 4-gating you, or the third CC is probably a better example. This third CC, it landed, and then it went, oh no, I'm not confident about this. Lifted, and only now are the SCVs going over. Like, that little bit of a stop, I think, shows that Maru is really taking this as safely as possible. 2 Cyclones, never once going to harass, are still back at home, fully healthy, waiting for the Warp Prism. This is a little awkward. Charge isn't quite done. It does finish up. 1-1 not done for the Bio, but you don't really be chasing Bio with Zealots the entire length of the map. That doesn't sound ideal. Cyclones, unfortunately, did not kill the Warp Prism before they dropped off the Zealots, but it did kill the Warp Prism in general. Second Warp Prism is on the way, ready to reinforce in the front lines, but this is a pretty important interruption to Creator's plan. Creator, not exactly all in with this, is pretty dedicated, and so far it is not working. Force field slicing off a handful of Marines, but then giving a lot of safety to the units behind the force fields. Third CC still mining. The Warp Prism not distracting or killing reinforcements in the main is really a missing component to this attack. Now we have that Warp Prism on the front lines, just reinforcing with as many Zealots as possible, but Maru's army is pretty feisty, so the medevac healing still left over. Widowmine's popping off. That was a beautiful hit in the center of the Zealots, and this is just a disaster for Creator. This has not worked out at all. This is a disaster. Yeah. A complete, utter disaster. That force field actually might have even hurt more than it helps. Mostly Marauders in the mix, so that one Immortal is actually getting great shots every single time, but it alone cannot defeat the 1-1 Bio underneath now 7 medevacs. Tankers there to help defend as well as the bunker. Widow Mines were getting beautiful shots and continuing to be reinforced because there is no interruption to mining. Creator needed his Warp Prism to either just be a big problem in the main or to be a problem in the main alongside with an attack on the front. And it was none of those things. Nothing paired up the way that Creator was hoping they would. And so Maru was able to play a pretty safe game here. Not get surrounded by the Zealots and continue reinforcing with as many Marauders as he can muster. That's a lot of Marauders right there. 19 of them. They die for the Colossus. Missed the opportunity thanks to the Warp Prism Micro. Second time, same thing happened. Second Colossus is out, but now you gotta make sure the Warp Prism is always around the Colossus because they will be focus fired. They do not have Extend Thermal Lance, and that is a bajillion Marauders. Two Colossus actually aren't even adding that much damage, honestly. The Marauders are just healing through all of it. And something is obviously better than nothing. What am I dropping to the natural as well? Just get that denied mining time. The tables have truly turned at this point, except Maru is not desperate for a distraction like Creator was with the Warp Prism in the main. He needed to distract, needed to interrupt production, it needed to kill reinforcements, it needed to do more than it did. Maru's not desperate for his medevac to do that. If it gets a shot, great. If it doesn't, oh well. His main army is so fearsome that he could also just take a direct battle. And as you can see, he backed away from that. Wasn't planning on trying to end the game right then. And if that Colossus stayed alive thanks to the Warp Prism. So Creator, while defending on death's door, gets a 4th base up and running. And after what looked to be a very poor attack on his side, I gotta applaud his ability to recover, at least to a certain degree. Still defending against this Widowmine drop. So far, so good. Resources lost in the gutter for Creator, obviously. He's trying to make up for it, but even though he's on 4 bases, getting maxed out himself, and seemingly with some decent technology. Colossus, right? Great. It's not that scary. The Marauder count is just so freaking high. With 2/2 upgrades and 8 medevacs, and now the Vikings can be produced, so the Vikings, obviously the more direct counter to the Colossus. Those Colossus are on borrowed time, it feels like. They're almost non-consequential. Like, don't even pay attention to them. And of course, Maru's on 4 bases, going up to a 5th and a 6th as well, as he finally prepares for his true attack. Now that everything is set up back at home and he's fully maxed out, there's no reason for him not to focus entirely on the front lines. And that's exactly what he's going to do. Shield Body Overcharge popped. That'll save Creator's life for a period of time. The Viking count also isn't enough to just dive on the Colossus, so the Stalkers are really trying their best to safeguard those Colossus, but eventually you're going to have to pull the trigger. And again, those Colossus aren't really burning through the army too fast. We've got EMPs included as well. Here we go. Finally, the battle will commence. Widowmine's going to go ahead and pop off on all the Zealots. Good pullback there from Maru. Gets an EMP in as well. Vikings taking the opportunity now go after the Colossus as the Stalkers blink back, knowing that they were in death's face. The Marauders would just tear through them. And this seems like a battle which Maru will inevitably win. It's not going to happen in a flash. Creator also mindful, pulling back to his shield battery, pulling back to his reinforcements, Warp Prism trying its best to micro, all that good stuff, keeping him alive. But Maru is the one that has, I think, more potential here. Might be actually going away with Disruptors, though, as Creator gets to a more complete kind of late-game Protoss army, which is really Stalker, Disruptor, and then tons of harassment and run-bys. But we're not there yet. Creator is still not able to afford a lot of map control. In fact, not really much at all. I love that he's still trying to do something with his Stalkers. They are very mobile, and if they get a Medevac, a Ghost, a Marauder, that's pretty damn useful. A Viking, even, that would be great. If they get corralled, however, that is pretty freaking terrible, and corralled they are. Stalker is desperately trying to recall. 5 of them will escape, although injured. A Zealot discovers a 5th base for Maru, turning into a planetary. Not the best sign on the side of Creator. Would have hoped this was a little more committed on 4 bases. It is not. And of course, 3-3 is on the way. 80% done for the Terran. Protoss was limited on the upgrades because of the way this game opened. There was ever a point in which Creator got double upgrades. He also has yet to get to double Robos, only finally adding on the second one to reinforce quickly. So he's missing a lot of that infrastructure, a lot of the map control that a Protoss at 13.5 minutes will probably want to have in a game. So Maru still holding on to the map control, still having, I believe, the scarier army, although its Disruptors now add a lot of fear there. He has the ability to also transition over into Liberators offensively, which is a real kick in the nuts for defensive Protoss. The Protoss might think, wow, good job, Protoss. I've done an excellent job recovering from a kind of wary state there in the mid-game. Go me. And then Liberators show up on your front door with your own chokes being used against you. And then you're like, oh, well, okay, I guess there's something I was supposed to do against that. And there isn't. Not if you're playing defensive. You got to be on the map trying to stop those Liberators from appearing. We're not even there yet, as Maru is still maxed out. He's got that 3-3, same amount of Marauders as ever. Vikings happily tearing down the Colossus. I think finally they took down the Warp Prism there. Yeah, exactly. The Colossus can no longer be saved. EMPs blanketing the front lines of the army. Those Archons, I don't believe, actually existed. You can't tell me otherwise. Disruptors get obliterated, and this was the battle that I always envisioned coming. And it is a colossal defeat for Creator. Down now almost 100 supply. No Disruptor is going to save your life as it is depowered. And I believe that Creator has been on borrowed time for the last 6 minutes. So this all makes a lot of sense. Didn't need Liberators for it. Just needed the appropriate battle. And Maru will take game number 1. Now, the top rights, we have Maru sitting on SCV. The bottom left, we do have Creator. Love giving credit to the Prodosses who try to recover from that mass gateway all-in, let's call it that. I mean, it's a little more nuanced, as we saw. There was some way of escaping out of the mass gateway army. But really, if everything goes well for the Terran, and Maru was really focused on playing the best possible Terran, he did not let himself be open to those warp prisms or the harassment or the all-in situation for him. He didn't stay on 3 bases, right? If the Terran plays everything right post-charge lot attack on those 3 bases, then they win. Like that, it's pretty simple, you know, and that's usually what we mean by an all-in. If the all-in doesn't work and the other guy plays a great game, doesn't make a lot of really bad mistakes after, then they should win. And that's exactly what happened. Usually, the way that mass gateway attack then kind of flows into a decent game for the Protoss is that either they get exactly what they wanted, which is the surround on the army, or the big humongous distraction in the main base with the warp prism, or they take a subpar battle, escape, and then use a lot of their charge lots for trying to buy time, run around, and interrupt the Terran. And then it's like, okay, maybe they can find even some decent amount of damage. Like, they actually manage to recover the game entirely if the run-bys are really that potent. And that never happened. And it's also a risky gamble. You can throw all your zealots into run-bys and harassment to try and buy time, or you could try and actually transition over into those Colossus in a 4th base and whatnot. And that's what Creator tried to do. It only gets you so far, though, as a Protoss army. That only gets you so far. Obviously, with Maru going for proxy racks, gotta talk about this for a second. So you have a bunker being built. Creator knows that this is a proxy based off the Reaper timing. And rolling his eyes like, oh, great, Reaper is super cool. I gotta say, excellent follow-up to a really convincing game 1. It wasn't a stomp until the very end, but I think both players would certainly acknowledge the situation that I just described, which is Maru knew that he didn't, you know, he couldn't screw up, and he didn't. And Creator knew that he was in a lot of trouble unless Maru screwed up. So I feel like they have a pretty good, you know, accurate assessment of the first game. But then you go into the second game, arm swinging here with double Reaper harassment. Even if Creator was very logical in his follow-up to a lost game, we know that Creator can be an emotional guy, and any pro gamer can be. And just to have that loss after a valiant attempt to come back, and then you're dealing with a bunker, it's just annoying. It's just like a little like poke in the eye. You're like, hey, that's not fair. What the hell, man? Creator is dealing with it as appropriately as a Protoss should. You know, if their pylon's not in danger and their shield battery's not in danger, they just need to wait. They get Stalkers instead of Adepts, which doesn't really mess up any plans nowadays. Twilight Council is the most popular option. If the plan for Creator was to go 3 Adept Oracle Harassment, which I haven't seen in a very long time, then it's a little weirder. He has to change his plans, but that's not the situation here. Things are actually still a little weird, though. I mean, this actually is dealing way more damage than I thought it would. The bunker will not be salvaged. The Reapers will get into the main base and get a scout. But an Adept died. 2 probes died. Now more on the main base, of course. And a shield battery overcharge was used. The Reapers do die. There's no escape out the main. That is a little unfortunate. I would say a lot of those times the Reaper do manage to escape. For instance, if they had just gone to the north as opposed to trying to go into the main, they would have definitely escaped. But anyway, altogether, you know, we see that this is more expensive for Maru. I'd still say the Protoss is kind of disappointed in how they reacted to that. But this is a solid start. Okay, so 2 Cyclones were actually already on the 3rd, and then they weren't there to help out their buddy. But then they come back, and it turns out that this will be a wash. 3 Sarkos for 3 Cyclones thus far. One-on-one, the Cyclone wouldn't, but, you know, Creator does have reinforcements. And this is a 3-gate yet again, guys. Third Nexus is coming down to the north, not to the triangle position. So Creator wasn't really planning for a massive counterattack, which I actually... I wonder if it would have been better for him to go for a Warp Prism instead of that Observer and to try and initiate the counterattack. It is a very difficult call to make, because I think if he was already doing it, I'm totally on board. 100%. I see some possibilities for some Stalker aggression, even though he did expand. But if he kind of has to decide based on that Cyclone interaction, it is a little weirder, isn't it? But I think if this was Max Packs, we would have gotten the Warp Prism, and, you know, it's definitely in there doing a lot of damage right now. Only 4 Stalkers over per Creator, which is enough to one-shot Marines. They had Maru trying to counter Micro with picking them up, which is kind of neat. Overall, a meh engagement. I was not bringing up Max Packs, by the way, but he is probably the best Stalker usage, Blink Stalker guy out there as far as openers. It just seems to be the case. If only he would prove it in an offline tournament. The news as of today is that he will not be participating in Esports World Cup, so that is the top-rated Protoss not going to the World Championship. Womp womp. Anywho. So, where are we? Some things have happened in this game. Not a lot of it game deciding. Again, trying to out-micro the soccer shots is something. Creator not wanting to really sacrifice any Stalkers for a single Marine, you know? These are scouting units. He is building up more of an army back at home now as he funneled his resources into a Colossus and an Immortal as well. The Immortal's really going to help out. Tank is on the way. Maru is on 2 bases. He's 3 racks so far. And should be 3rd CCing, maybe even on location. Uh-oh. That wasn't very good there. Lost the Stalker. Charge is nowhere near completed. Oh, Lord, that has only just started. The Immortal might be helpful if it actually gets in a range of the tank, but it just had its shields popped. And is nowhere near them. Colossus does help a lot versus the only Marine BO5. Shield battery also available, and there you go. Immortal doing exactly what it needed. Maru identifying that this was not going to go very well. Picks up, almost loses the medevac. Will instead sacrifice a tank and a Cyclone for greener pastures, trying to go to that main base. He knows the Stalkers are preoccupied, so at the very least, he's only dealing with reinforcements and the returning Colossus army. Again, no charge. Those Zealots get obliterated. 3 medevacs with the Marines in the main base. Ain't nothing to sneeze at. Forge gets taken down. Even with a Concave, these could actually maybe take on the Colossus. They're not going to try. I think that is better. Reinforcements were inevitable. It would have been very nice if that sentry had killed the medevac, but say Livy. So Creator defends the first engagements pretty well. Pretty well. Maru really had to make a last-second decision to go into that main base, in which he found a pretty nice reward for it. A Forge going down is one of the best things you could ask for in a situation with the Protoss right on your tail, knowing you're going to drop into the main base. And Creator finds himself in a very promising position. Maru might have added a 3rd CC eventually, but that really was not very fast. It's also not on location. Just that little bit of extra time is considerable. Also got a little tiny supply block as well. Vikings trying to be produced. We're at 5 medevacs. That's a pretty good amount to start building up Vikings. Clearly need something to deal with the Colossus, because we're not talking about that extremely high Marauder count of last game where it felt like the Colossus were almost useless. We are, well, just frankly with a lot of not units. Maru has picked up 3 medevacs. All of his Marines are going across the map. Stalkers are on the hunt. They're waiting for something like this. Maru takes the opportunity to try and pounce on top of them. Good reaction there from Creator, who can blink to the main, thanks to a well-placed pylon. Or, sorry, the high ground, not the main. And it looks like Creator, not super confident in his engagement on the front lines, was too worried about the 3 medevacs. That is a lot, after all. So will not try to break the natural. We do have a couple of tanks. The Viking count was building, so the Colossus wouldn't be the end-all, be-all. But I am still worried about Maru's position. I think he knows he's also in a very tricky one. He's got to recover from the decisions in the first 8 minutes. Not exactly like Creator in the last game, but kind of mimicking it to a certain degree, because now it's Creator who's taking the map control, it's Creator who's taking the faster expansions, it's Creator who's in the lead, and Maru is obviously trying to just defend. Wouldn't Mind Drop was instantly scouted, so maybe don't do that. Observer is scouting everything currently, which is a big problem. Knowing the exact movement of the Terran army is just golden. Really nicely placed with the sword. I really like that. Wouldn't Mind's blanketing around as well. Tanks get sieged up. Big concave. The best that Maru can do here. 1-1 versus just one of the Protoss. Planning on pulling the SCVs. He knows that he's desperate. But for Creator, there's no reason to potentially throw this game by moving into a well-set-up Terran army. He doesn't have to. He's on 4 bases. Could be on a 5. Yep, exactly. 5th base as I am speaking. Another robo being added on. More upgrades. Second forge this game. He's obviously still behind, thanks to the sniper earlier on, but the point is, he is now the one that's in control. So this is a much better game for the Protoss, even though the supplies aren't that different. The situation certainly is. Having 3 bases set up and a maxed out army, I guess Maru has successfully gotten to an even state. You know, maxed out armies, anything can happen. Creator's going to have more bank. He's going to have more bases to fall back on. He's going to have multiple locations to warp in from to potentially get us around when he needs it. He's got some things that are going for him as the person who's been in the lead, but he could still take an absolutely atrocious fight, and I love what Maru decided to do here. He's like, I'm not going to play some super long game and hope that you let me win. Let's just decide right here, right now. SCV's being pulled in. This could actually get really ugly for a Creator. He needs to take the best possible fight. Disruptors are being pumped out to kind of replace the Colossus if they need replacing. Vikings take down 1. Or no, they didn't take down 1. They injured 1. Oh my god, just going for it. The Marines kind of on the front lines, however, getting barbecued by the Colossus, which is just standing. They are being protected by the shield body overcharge. So much of the bio has already been depleted. EMPs do come down as the Protoss army tries to escape, realizing that there is still a little bit too much. The Vikings certainly would have killed the Colossus if they had remained there, and now we even have a recall over to the 3rd base. Not going to be stuck into the main. Going to be able to come in from 2 different directions. Probe so far saved. Zealot's trying to make sure this is really an all-in. 100% all-in. Maru's armor supply actually still superior. I mean, now the upgrades have evened up. And again, Creator will be coming in from potentially even 3 different angles. Or he's going to base trade this, which... Okay, is that the riskier play? No, I think it isn't. He's gonna lose all of his technology and production in the main base, which is why I'm a little worried. Is this actually a good idea? I don't know. I am pretty confident that he would have been able to take on this army. The tanks have been left alone because time is of the essence right now. Maru just has to be fast, so he just left his tanks alone. Yeah, the tanks are out of the equation. You're not dependent on Colossus anymore, really. Okay, well. Oh, well, actually he is. He didn't get to build up as many disruptors as I thought he would. All of his robos died. Okay. Alright, okay. Yeah, maybe this is actually the best idea. I think what really works here is that there's a Dark Shrine. Oh, +1, barely denied. So the Dark Shrine is one of the best possible tools for a base trade, and it's even better when it's a base race, and there are orbitals flying around, not able to scan. EMPs are available, however, so DTs will only get you so far, and Creator's current problem is that he is supply blocked. If he was planning on doing a good old 1 DT at a time trick, that doesn't really work. Main battle could ensue here. Shield battery and cannons will be done. Vikings trying their best to take out the Colossus before the real fight actually occurs. But I think we're out of EMPs, which means these Archons are brilliant. In the last game, I swear they weren't even there. They got deleted so fast. But in this game, all the EMPs have been used. The very tired bio army here. Vikings unable to kill the Warp Prism. That could come back in to help Micro. Disruptor's going to buy an infinite amount of time. And as such, Maru will go ahead and tap out. Not able to truly cut the head off the snake there, right? He was continuously chopping at the ends of it. It was regrowing its tail because it's absolutely how snakes work. And he just knew that that wasn't ever going to end in his favor. It was going to take way too long, and he would at very least be vulnerable to a real base race, which is killing every last building. So he taps out. And we have an even Stevens 1-1 to start off this best of 5. Tied up here, moving on to Oceanborn. In the top left, it is Creator. In the bottom, it is Maru. So both games having a similar pace, I suppose. Kind of awkwardness, for whatever reason, for one player. And then the other player takes advantage of that awkwardness and takes the map control, takes the bases, takes the... well, I guess the commanding lead, you know, the position that you're in StarCraft where you are very confident. And so you have your map, you have your scouting, you have your bases, you have your production, and you have your technology. And you have the ability to react to the other person as opposed to being on your own back foot and having to react whatever they're doing. Like, that's a very different, like, power struggle. And it flips between the games. Initially, Maru was the one who took advantage of the awkwardness of Creator's build and his unsuccessful attack, and then it was kind of in the lead and ready to just end it at any moment. And then the next game, Creator was the one that was like, well, that didn't really work out for Maru. Anything that he tried to do, I'm going to get a really good economy, and I'm going to take map control, and then I'm going to react mostly to what you're doing. So he goes to move out. Says, okay, this is getting kind of awkward, 3 medevacs, and tanks are sieged up at home. I'm not going to go for the attack. I'm going to pull back. He did eventually decide to do something kind of risky by base racing, but maybe he was right to do that. I will say that that was hard to call, even with the God Vision. Because he had, he had his robos depowered or killed. He had his upgrades denied. He had his supply block, I want to say. That might have been one of the major factors of why he didn't try and take the engagement. Because I think if he warps in 12 zealots, the tanks, again, totally left alone. They're killed. And then you take on the main army. The main army in the main. I feel like Creator could have. But I very, very much understand why he thought maybe the better idea would be the base trade. Because the zealots were already infiltrating all of the bases. It was clear that it was an open opportunity. And so you force a base race. And if you're the one who's deciding, I guess, that this is a base race, this is how I'm going to play the game and how I'm going to direct this game, you do, again, have a little more power over the game than the other guy. So even though Maru pulled the SCVs and was clearly ready to all in and base trade if necessary, Creator was really the one who said, okay, 100%, this is going to be a base trade. So in doing that, you usually get the preparations going. You get the multiple bases elsewhere on the map. You get the Dark Shrine. You start to rebuild elsewhere because, the main base is a goner. It puts you in a bit of a better position to be the one to decide to do that. It still is pretty freaking risky, though. and not just because the old adage of, don't base trade a Terran. I think that's actually long gone. Any base trade is very specific to the scenario. And I would even say that the Terran can find themselves in a worse position more often. But I'm also Terran biased, so take that as you will. When it comes to base trades. We do have a 3cc build. So, do want to focus in on that. Maru really changing builds up, build to build to build. Different every single time. Her Creator has chosen a 3 gateway blink every single time so far. The Maru's 3cc is going to go into barracks. So this is the greediest thing that you can do. And awkwardly enough, this is actually the time that Creator decides to 4-gate. This is a actually common occurrence. I feel like I've explained it multiple times. But having seen a lot of games that look like this, I can tell you what happens. There is one chance for the 4-gate to kill the 3cc bio player. Usually, defending a 4-gate requires tank production, and well-placed tanks and safe tanks. You don't have tanks with this build. That sounds bad. But you have a lot of barracks production fairly quickly. And as we know, bio eventually beats stalkers. So, generally, this 4-gate has one chance with its first attack to win, to overpower the production, and then good for the Protoss. If it doesn't, the second attack really fizzles. So Maru scouting the 4-gate right there. 2 gateways at the front, 2 gateways in the main. Perfect Reaper scout because the timing also worked out for him. Just having 1 bunker in the main already makes this first attack way less likely to work. So this is like a 4-gate versus the 3cc and an extreme attack versus extreme greed. This got to be good for the attack, right? Not necessarily. Especially when the Terran is actually prepared. So that bunker, gonna get killed, but actually did buy a little time. 2 SCVs go down, not a big deal. Second bunker killed, not canceled. Okay, whatever, not a big deal. Because Maru knows that as long as he's not losing units, he is gathering a much more powerful army that's about to have sim and combat shields. That's what he is looking forward to. 1 soccer exchange for that bunker. SCV is now pulled into the action. Stim and combat shields finally done. There's the race after the stalkers. Blink is available, but it's a little awkward. Okay, nice pick up on the Warp Prism. Obviously, Maru's now in a very difficult position. He either has to continue forward against the micro of the stalkers or retreat, in which he would be chased down himself. But every stim hurts him, so the fact that he had to stim twice there is a little dangerous. Eventually, the microbility of the stalkers and the Warp Prism, that's a double blink right there, does win out against the Medivac-less Bio army. Now, when Medivacs are out, that will no longer be the case, and just straight up Bio will win against the stalkers. Just straight up. But we're not there quite yet. Medivacs not ready. Bunker holds on for about 3 volleys right there. Nicely done, Bunker. Another stim has to be used. Many Marines. Now 2 shot from stalkers. So you saw a bunch of them just get deleted right there. And again, the chase is on. It's a chase that could backfire on Maru if he doesn't manage to collect enough kills. If he can't retreat himself. It is actually very dangerous to do this. As, there we go, finally getting that return there. But there's the stim in return. And unfortunately, with more reinforcements coming in, well, yeah, I don't think that was actually it for Maru. Creator, with just enough stalkers here, now races after the golden opportunity to kill Marines. Ideally, would have killed more Marauders. But you take what you can get. That was almost scary. If there was like 6 more stalkers, then I think that is the game-ending overcommittal, perhaps. But there just aren't enough stalkers. 11 stalkers to 6 Marauders, 10 Marines. Now 2 Medivacs are out. Oh, they make it 1. Nice focus fire there. Warp Prism in the main base going to try and click as many SCVs as possible. Creator trying to make this as close of a game as possible. But remember, as much as I've been highlighting the attacks and how that could have gone sideways, if Maru was... I mean, Maru obviously played it well enough. He's winning. He is winning. But again, I gotta say that this is going to be a little sketchy of an opportunity, especially if your macro isn't perfect. So all the ladder heroes out there is going to try and replicate this. Be super careful. But anyway, now that we can take a whole look at the entire situation, Crater is in a lot of trouble. Maru has been on 3cc this entire time. Yes, not mining, but he's about to, so that's going to come over very swiftly. He's had a very good work account the entire time as well, and even though in the actual resource trades, we can see that Crater is winning. Lost a little more gas, but went out in the minerals big time. Now we're just talking about that quality of the bio with Medivacs. It's just so freaking good. And Creator, he does have a couple of Colossus, but charge is not done. Blink Stalkers are limited. They are trying to place themselves in the appropriate locations. Gotta say, Creator is actually shoring up his defenses right now. Stalkers in the natural, Stalkers in the main. Rest of the armor at the 3rd base around a shield battery. That's as good as you can hope for. And Maru actually sees this and says, you know what, I'm not going to get a chance to counterattack. That's okay. I'm still in a really great position because 3cc with that amount of bioproduction early on has really given me a chance to have a big army. He would have had to have lost probably upwards to more like 30 SCVs to be behind thanks to that 4-gate. So we're kind of more on that first game. This is a little more ambiguous as to who's really going to win. Where that first game, I was pretty confident Maru was going to win. But it's the same situation in that the Marauder count's now exceptionally high. Upgrades are pretty good for the Terran, but way more on par than that first game. And then Maru is completing his army composition with Ghosts and Vikings. Creator is on the bridge army, the thing that bridges you from the 4-gate to the 4-base, plenty of economy, maxed out army. So the bridge army is what I'm going to call it, which is actually kind of vulnerable 2 EMP plus Marauder Concave. I mean, Protoss are generally vulnerable to that, to be fair, but it's even more so right now. Without distractions and run-by setup, without disruptors, eyeing a one-shot kill situation, Maru's army in a concave on this one, this would disappear just like that first game. This is a way weaker army than you might think if you're more familiar with a Terran army that is mostly Marines. This was 70 Marines, then those Colossus are amazing. 19 Marauders instead. That's pretty good. 6 Vikings, about to become 8 as well. Upgrade stalled out a little bit, as the Armory Engineering Bay was not particularly quick. That does mean that we're about to be on even upgrades. +2, just 15, 20 seconds away for the Protoss. Crater's actually the one that's eyeing up an engagement. Not sure that's actually his place to be doing. If Maru was just staying home defensive, then okay, more power to the Protoss. But Maru's also sharking around for good positions. You know, obviously he knows if he just stays behind this choke, then it's the worst possible engagement. No reason to do that, as his army's perfectly capable of engaging. Zealot's going to go for a run-by. I do like that, but Maru getting some time to decide how he splits, as the main engagement wasn't really threatening his front door as of yet. So that was a very, very calm split, easy cleanup on the Zealots, and, well, I am very much on the side of Maru will win this game should he take a decent battle. The Vikings looking to take advantage of this little area here. The Stalkers can only do so much. Many of them injured, now EMP'd as well. Now many of them dead. Oh, that Warp Prism gets demolished, and that Archon is left out to die. Creator losing some critical units before a fight really even begins. Down 30 army supply. Maru takes a 4th base behind all of this. Going to turn into a planetary. Creator trying to take little battles before a really big one, because he can't really accept a big battle. He needs to try and shave off what he can, hope the disruptors buy more time, and hope that he gets more disruptors, more upgrades, and more shield batteries to help him out. He's going up to 5 bases with double upgrades pumping. +1 armor could help here in this upcoming battle. Just Chrono Boost that a couple more times. Maru's army is just so damn good, man. The EMPs take away that front line. Disruptor is run away from. Shield battery overcharge. I don't believe saved a single unit. And now it'll be gone. Observer gets EMP'd and killed. No vision from Creator on where that army might be coming in from. Could be right. And we do have a little internet interruption, so apologies, YouTube watchers. Should be back up and running. Thank God for the pause option. And it's been quite unstable recently. Initially, I think one day I actually will confidently blame Twitch. One day was definitely Twitch's fault, but I'm very happy that they're going to be installing fiber in our neighborhood actually within the next couple of months. I'm going to get Ting fiber. You guys remember Ting? And Ting Neeb? Just very coincidentally, they're coming to my area to give us fiber. I don't know. Very coincidental. Anyways, back to the game. So, this did not end. I actually would not have been surprised if Maru chose that engagement. But Maru, one of the best players in the world, knows when to choose an engagement. So he decides that wasn't the opportunity. Perhaps if 2-2 had been as well-timed as possible. A lot of other things that happened in this game that made it that it was a little disjointed, it was a little later, so on and so forth. Maybe then he would have done it. 2-2 versus what would have been 2-1, I think, at that time. Maybe he would have gone for it. But he doesn't. So now it's actually 3-1 versus 2-2. Basically even upgrades, I guess. Storm is on the way for Creator. I do love the Protoss are now adding in Storm as the game continues. I can't really blame them, especially with previous EMPs, for just giving up on Storm past the 2 or 3 base Storm build. But I really think dotting the map with High Templars is it's just a really good idea. Like, particularly because Terrans get really eager. When a Terran sees that they're winning a battle, they will stim to win. Trying to win right then and there. Not let the Protoss recuperate. And a single Storm can actually just dissuade that entirely, because they also usually pop all of their EMPs at once. It's a Terran thing, okay? If you're Terran, you gotta do it. DT's actually managed to just skate on by there. Disruptor, good shot. A couple of ghosts went down, and Creator starting to get a handle on things. Maybe. Storm does help out, but unfortunately, only one Storm available at that 5th base. Maru needs to decide if he wants to really take 2 battles at once when there's so many things that can one-shot him. Well, Disruptors, I guess, and then the Storms could blanket the army. He's got to be very careful. Upgrades now no longer even. Protoss with 3-2. All of the upgrades that he would need. Even DT Blink going to be coming online. Maru having to retreat very awkwardly. Also injured. Medivacs have not had time to heal up the army. Stalkers seal, they got EMP'd, so they're not looking so hot. Oh my god, the Disruptor almost went off. The second one does, but doesn't hit nearly as much. Now we got a concave for the Terran. Perhaps Maru retreating was actually the good call right there. Left side, though, entirely depleted. Vikings not killing that last Colossus. Only Stalkers, for the most part, left over. Maru needs to get all of his army together here. And with more reinforcements, I feel like he might just hold, but there's that Warp Prism coming in hot with some Zealots. Some now 3-2-1 Zealots as well. Sorry, those were DTs. Turning into Archons, even better. And now Zealots reinforcing from just back at home. That one Colossus will probably be killed, I'm not going to lie, but I feel like the Colossus did its job. It did it just enough that it can actually retire or be killed in peace. But that wasn't actually a win, as good as that looked for a second. So, you know, initially Maru had that concave, and then Creator seemed to have more units. It actually was a wash. Both players coming out of this having to deplete their banks to recoup their maxed out army. Behind it, however, Maru was making sure to get a couple of really key things. 3-3 upgrades finally finished. Liberator range finished. +2 ship weapons finished. Liberator is now a really important tool for the Terran. Additional orbital commands, as well as a brand new planetary off to the 6th base. 5th base is already settled. Creator is on 5 bases himself, but did not expand behind that. Now dealing with nukes. I didn't even see that on the production tab, but Maru is very insistent on it. He's also found the Protoss army entirely out of position. Liberators siege up on no anti-air whatsoever. Good focus fire on the Disruptor. Warp Prism taken down. Stalkers coming from the backside. The best possible chance for them to kill those Liberators, but they are too little too late. They will not save that base. The nuke did go off and killed a handful of probes, depowered a production facility, and Creator seems like he's throwing his hands up in the air and saying, screw this, I'm going to try and kill you right now. But Maru, easy response here. Liberators were already retreating, it looks like. So they were already ready to defend the bases. You know, Creator, I think, would have had to have gone for a gut punch. He would have had to actually try and get into that main base before the Liberators sieged up, before the army returned. Because he is not winning a straight-up army battle. With or without the Liberators. Creator cannot defeat this army. He doesn't have any Disruptors. The Colossus will not burn through the Marauders fast enough. And there are also Liberators. That is, at the end of the day, the biggest problem, the last problem, that I'm not sure Creator can actually deal with. The numbers aren't particularly high, but so far they are being protected. And Creator is just forced to constantly disengage away from them. Oh, Lordy, baby Jesus, the Wood of Mine. The Wood of Mine on the Warp Prism, oh my god. Not gonna happen, but, oh gosh, yeah, Creator's like, oh, Liberator's not protected. Well, they're protecting themselves, buddy. When they have +2 ship weapons, it's pretty good. I guess this is when I can recall that there was a balance patch that reduced the length of the advanced ballistics, but they're still pretty good. All right, I think we're seeing that. They're still very good in this particular position, which is that the Terran was already winning and can still win without Liberators, but then the Liberators are the cherry on top. And who cares if they were nerfed or not. EMPs actually do not pop the Archons immediately, but they shortly pop anyway. And that is a 100 supply difference almost, as the Terran army just runs straight into the Protoss. No Fs given. And this will be a Maru 2-1 lead. And the final map could once again be Amphion. It was the final map for Pure versus Dark. Let's see if it is from Maru versus Creator. Bottom, Maru. Top, Creator. Last game actually ended up being a little bit more back and forth than I gave it credit for. I did not believe it was as evident as the first game and who was going to win, but it was similar to the first game. And even though we did actually get to Liberators in the last game, Maru could have actually won with just the bio. The last battle looked a little closer, but it's only because Maru clearly knew he was going to win and just YOLO'd into the Protoss. So Maru's gotten the better edge of 2 games. One very convincing, last game still pretty convincing. Creator's really trying his best to make, you know, pseudo comebacks happen, or to hold on to a lead when he does gain it, which pretty difficult to do. Even when he had a lead in game 2, that still ended up being a little topsy-turvy. Creator has gone for the same plan, almost same plan, 3 times in a row. So 3-gate, 3-gate, and then a 4-gate. And that 4-gate was what set him on the wrong path to begin with. As much as it sounds like a good thing to have against a 3cc player, it's way more complicated than that. Unfortunately, I'm not sure what Protoss 2-base all-in would kill a 3cc player 100%. What is the hard build order counter? I'm honestly not sure. I feel like a 2-base charge all-in might have a little bit more hope, but no. Even then, no. Because I think either way, no matter what Creator does on 2 bases, it's whether or not Maru gets a scout. So if Maru 3cc's bio, no scout, has no bunkers, I think Creator does win that last game. He actually had probably 7 Stalker Valdes wasted, quote-unquote, on the bunker. He has to get rid of the bunker, so it's not wasted, but it's not ideal either. And if you imagine 7 volleys of stalker shots on units, not bunkers, like Maru at one point only had 7 units, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, that would have been way different. Ditto if it was a 2-base charge, which is a mostly shock and all 2-base all-in. It's actually not very good other than that. So again, if Maru doesn't scout, great. If he does, doesn't look very pretty. And that really was a very, very good scout in the last game. I could have highlighted that even more than I already did. Because the fact that it confirmed 100% that it was a 4-gate. No ambiguous, I didn't scout the 4th gateway, the 3rd gateway. Really instills a lot of confidence in Maru to get 3 bunkers. Not just 2, not just 1, but 3 bunkers. So Maru's pretty on point, is the kind of TLDR here. He goes for a high ground command center, seeing the lightest form of aggression from Creator, but still wary. Plays it safe. And I promised I would look up their score and proceeded not to. So let me go ahead and look that up. As we have the command center float on down. Oh! Very big change. So we're going to have a 1-1-1 here from Maru. Not just into a Widowmine drop, but actually into Banshees. That could be game ending against Creator. He just simply does not know and doesn't have an observer in position. He loses 15 workers. Well, he'd be in another position where he just has to make a comeback happen. Of course, this could not just be harassment. This could actually lead into an attack to the front. Something that Creator should be at least knowledgeable of. His adept usage is good. He doesn't lose it. But that adept will never get into the main base to scout. Otherwise, with Creator's Twilight Council opener, he has to wait for the observer to get across the map, in which case it will scout the Banshee as the Banshee starts to kill him. And then it has to be recalled. So kind of awkward right there. Adept still scouting, and good on Maru to hide that tank. He's been good about that in multiple games. Finally, the tank will be revealed. The forward trajectory here is not promising either, so the Creator knows that he has to skedaddle. What he doesn't know about is about the Banshee, and although there's a shield battery in the main, 2 Banshees will eventually be here. Observer did not go very far, is the good news. Hallucination instead was used. Actually, really nicely done there. It looks like Creator was very wary of this possible build opener, so either studied his opponent or just is used to this on Amphion. But it's one of the better starts that he could hope for. It still is a very tricky build to deal with, because even the Banshees in a direct confrontation had a lot of DPS. The Observer was split out of position, so the Banshee did not get injured. The second Banshee barely didn't die. Now we have plenty of Observers. Now we have Army But you know what we don't have? Oh my god, a backup pylon. The Immortal does pop out, but is wasting shots on the Marines. Gotta kill that tank. Banshee's gonna try to be torn down, but the Banshee's actually not being killed fast enough. Does so much return DPS. Finally, it goes down. And the tank will also go down by the looks of things. The Immortal stands strong. It was a messy engagement, really, on both sides. Creator could have had a much better engagement if he had just actually had a shield battery, though. The shield battery that he was creating was killed, understandably, but the fact that he didn't have one from the get-go did hurt his breakout a little bit there. Maybe 1 or 2 more units survive. Banshee number 3 appears, and that could be a real shock that someone afforded 3 Banshees. In this case, it's not done too much. And as far as the actual dedication to 3 Banshees with Cloak, I'm not sure they've actually they've done enough. It is much more difficult to say just because it's not about a direct count of probe kills. They did interact with the main fight. They certainly helped it make it look more like a wash than a Protoss favorite engagement. So even though they didn't kill a whole lot and resources lost is only slightly favorable to Creator. Okay, yeah. And yeah, the Banshees, I mean, they're not the most powerful thing here, but they did help. They did help. And overall, it looks like it is Maru who is in that lead. He's only lost out in the resources trade by a little bit, so that's not really even important. What's more important is that he has 3 CC, 58 SCVs to 57 probes. Creator is going for a Colossus style, not just pure gateway, so being at a similar worker count's more acceptable. So then huge spikes going to Maru because of the Banshee's harassment. Maru seems to be in a good position. He is not worried about Creator attacking him prior to Stim, Combat Shields, and Medivacs being out. As Creator would not be prepared, but even if Creator just threw everything he had, which is not a lot, across the field, say, for instance, this Colossus is what he's depending on to really stand strong, well, these tanks and double Raven with Interference Matrix would make that Colossus absolutely useless. Maru gets to build up on 3 bases. Creator taking this time to try and plant down a 4th base, get his upgrades going. Actually going to be one of that +1 armor as opposed to +2 attack. The 2nd Forge on the way as well. Observer is obviously going to be scouted. I think when you have 2 Ravens, you're double scouting it. I think that's how that works. Plenty of Marauders being pumped out as well. Little supply depot placements around like that to make sure he doesn't get run by without his knowledge. He is getting a 1-1 upgrade lead as well. It's finishing right now as Maru pushes out, and Creator is the one that is in a lot of trouble. Defending the 4th base and the 3rd and the natural. Kind of difficult here. It's a lot of space. And the double Raven. Oh my good lord. The Colossus are actually useless. I mean, how in the world do you defend against this? The answer is you don't. Apparently. The Colossus does get torn down. This first Colossus is fine until it's not. It just is completely useless. And that is going to be that. Maru with a incredibly decisive Game 4 final battle. Double Raven was almost cruel here, guys. I mean, you can see that this, the Immortal lasting longer and getting shots on more Marauders, a handful more Zealots with +1 armor being done, getting the last shots on some of the weakened Marauders. There could have still been a hold, even with those really brutal Interference Matrix. But Creator just did not have enough ready to go. The Marauder is still healthy enough to tackle that Colossus. Tank still actually up and running, and this is going to be it for Creator. Maru will once again be in the finals of a GSL, facing off against Dark in a best of 7.